Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2019 Chevy Silverado 2500, and we're going to be taking a look at and I'm going to show you how to install the B&W Gooseneck turnover ball hitch. Now the B&W hitch is going to be a great option to be able to tow gooseneck trailers down the road safely. But in addition to gooseneck trailers, B&W also makes the companion fifth wheel hitch, whether you want the slider or the stationary one. They're both going to drop down into the square shank of your gooseneck. You'll take your ball out, drop your fifth wheel hitch down in it. It locks down to your bed so that you're safe to tow your fifth wheel trailer too. That's why I like the B&W hitch so much, is because it's so versatile. They have other accessories that you can use too, but you can only use them with the B&W Gooseneck hitch. The construction of this hitch are going to be incredibly heavy built. That's how you're going to get the weight capacities that you have out of this. The downward pressure on the ball, which is going to be your pin weight, is going to be 7,500 pounds max. And then the gross trailer weight rating of this hitch is going to be 30,000 pounds. Now you obviously want to check with the owner's manual of your vehicle to see what your vehicle is capable of handling to be able to tow safely down the road. Now, depending on how often you're towing close to the capacity of your vehicle, I would recommend a rear suspension enhancement, whether that's going to be a set of airbags, Roadmaster Access suspension, timber ends, or sumo springs. They're all going to help to support the rear end of your truck when you're towing down the road. What I like about this gooseneck ball, it's going to differ from a lot of other brands in that the turnover ball technology, you simply turn it over and you can store it right in the gooseneck itself. Now you will have to pull the pin to be able to do that. We've got it pulled already for example purposes. And we'll show you that pin just here in a second. But when you're up here, getting your truck ready for a trip, or if you're using it for work, I typically will leave mine up all the time unless I specifically need it down for some reason. If I'm hauling sheets of plywood or drywall, I'll flip it over and drop it in. You can leave that pin pulled. It's not recommended because there's a spring in there that it will relax if it's constantly pulled tight. But yeah, you can flip it over. I do recommend putting some grease. You will get a small packet of white lithium grease that comes with your kit. I recommend putting it on the shank itself and then putting some grease, more heavy duty grease, not white lithium, on the ball itself so that you have some lubrication inside the coupler of your trailer. The white lithium grease on the gooseneck ball will help it whenever the paint wears off on the inside, which is just inevitable. When you have metal rubbing against metal, it's going to come off. It'll help it to not seize inside the hitch. We have seen people that cannot get their gooseneck ball out because it is so tight in there because of the rust, because rust will cause it to expand and you cannot get the gooseneck ball out. So I will preface that with, you want to use white lithium grease on this gooseneck ball when you're dropping it into the hitch. It will come with 2 integrated safety chain loops that you will have to drill 2 additional holes in on each side, in addition to the 4-inch hole that you'll have to drill up front. But these are for your safety chains on your gooseneck hitch so that you can attach them to this, so that if you ever, hopefully not in the case of a unlikely disconnect, these will come in to save the day, hold your trailer in the bed of your truck so that you can come to a safe stop. This is where your pin's going to be located. To release the ball, to be able to flip it over, whichever direction you have it, you want to pull straight out and then twist it clockwise. So turn the handle like this. It'll lock it into place, and then when you're ready to roll, you simply just twist it back and let it slam shut. Now when it comes to the installation, this installation is not difficult. I would say it's probably going to take you 4 to 5 hours to get it installed if you've never installed one before. I will say that the components are very heavy, so it may help to have an extra set of hands, or maybe, I don't know that a floor jack would help you a whole lot because the axle's in the way, but definitely having an extra set of hands, or if you can get yourself up onto a lift, it's going to be a lot easier to get up in there. Some of the components can be kind of tight to get to torque everything down, but getting it up into place it's not too bad. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the installation. To begin our installation, we'll need to drop our spare tire down out of the way. It just makes for more room underneath here to be able to work. The next thing, we'll need to remove our lower heat shield and our upper heat shield. You might be able to do this without removing the lower heat shield because it's not really up in the way. We're going to need to be up here, but you'll definitely have to remove the upper one and it will not be reinstalled. So we'll take a 13mm socket in order to get this removed. Set it off to the side. On the top heat shield, you're going to have one 13mm bolt here, two on the side on the top of the frame rail, and one on that other cross member up front. For the two outside ones, it might be easier to reach them from the wheel well if you've got this shorter liner like we do. Just use a 13mm wrench with the swivel head on it so that we can get up there. I will grab our heat shield and pull it down out of the way. Now, the next thing we need to do is up inside of our bed. We need to take a measurement from the end of our bed, not the tailgate, but the bed itself. And we have to account for the thickness of our bed liner too. If you don't have a bed liner, you don't have to do that. But we need to measure to 44 3/4. We're gonna add 1/8 of an inch, so we need 44 7/8. We'll mark our bed here. We'll put a light dot right there, and then we'll come, because we know we're not centered from in the middle of our bed here, but we'll take a measurement here from side to side. We're at 51 inches, so we need to be about at 25 and a half. Right there. Now we're going to take a 4-inch hole saw with a pilot bit and drill out our hole. Now we're going to take a file and some clear coat and file off the inside of this hole to get rid of any sharp edges, and then we're going to clear coat it so we don't have to worry about rust and corrosion later on. Now, in the next step, we're going to have to remove one wheel well liner. The instructions will tell you to remove them if you need to. Ours is going to be kind of in our way because we need to slide some bars up on top of our frame rail. So we're going to use a T15 Torx bit in order to remove them all. Now we need to cut a small V into the bottom of this pinch weld because it's not going to allow us to get our one piece, our bracket up in there. So we're just using some tin snips in order to cut through this. You want it to be decently wide so that you can bend it back and get your piece into place. Now we'll grab that piece with a pair of pliers. You can bend it in order to give yourself some more room. Now we'll take this triangular bracket and we'll slide it up over our frame, and you'll see very quickly why we had to cut that notch. So if we didn't have that notch there, you can see how this piece would not fit up in here. So we'll slide it. We'll get it so far. Hopefully we can get it to, yep, we got it resting on the other frame. Get it far enough to pass it, and then we'll scooch it up to the front, and we can take our other bracket, which is just a square bracket, and slide it into. We'll take our bar and slide it up on top of the frame as well. There's going to be holes in it. You'll see these holes right here. You'll want those. They're just slightly off-centered of this bracket. You want the smaller portion of the bracket to be facing down. There we go. We'll get in so far and then flip it up. If you're having trouble flipping this up, it can be difficult. We'll take a adjustable wrench and you'll bite onto it and just turn it over. There we go. You just have to get it past those corrugations. Now we can take it and slide it further back. Now we can go underneath, get our brackets better situated and get our centerpiece lifted up. Now underneath our vehicle, we have our 2 bars in place. The 1 bolt we're gonna have to put in first because it's really difficult to get to because it's above the fuel tank. You'll get a little rubber O-ring that comes in your kit. We'll need to slide that over top of the bolt. This is gonna help us to hold it in place while we get the hardware on it. Now we can take our center section, we'll slide it up and over our exhaust. The opening will be slightly off center. You want the offset to be facing the rear of the vehicle. Pull our hoses around here. If you need an extra set of hands in order to do this, you definitely ask a friend to help you. But we'll get this slid up and in place over top of our fuel tank. Now we're going to take one of our shorter bolts, a lock washer, then a flat washer. And what I'm going to do, it may be hard to see, is I'm going to lift this center section up, and there's those threaded holes. I try to get them pretty well centered between our gooseneck hole that we drilled there. And we're going to lift this bracket up, put the bolt through the inside, and thread it into this pole here. Our next set of hardware to get our front rail installed is the shorter bolts, same ones we use for the rear rail. And then we have a lock washer and a nut. So we'll take our rail, stand it up against the front side of our hitch, slide it through, followed by a lock washer and a nut. Repeat that process for the remaining bolts. When we get over to the one above the gas tank, you just have to be very, very careful to not push the bolt back through. Now with all of our hardware loosely threaded in by hand, you want to leave everything loose because we're going to be coming over to the outside of our frame and we need to clean out some weld nuts. Now our truck on the outside, you'll notice that our weld nuts are pretty rusted. When we're shooting this video, this truck's only 4 years old, but it's used as a salt spreading truck. So you can see they're pretty bad. You'll see 2 holes here and 1 hole here. You need to use the center one. We're going to be spraying some penetrating oil in them and using a bolt, the same exact thread as our bolts that are going to end up going in the frame, which are the larger silver bolts in your kit. And we just took a angle grinder and cut some slots into this bolt. If this is a case for you, which you'll be able to determine that before you even pick up the kit, just look at the openings here. You can use a tap for this too, but they really don't need to be re-tapped. They just need to be cleaned out. So go to the hardware store, pick up the same bolt that comes in your kit, cut some slits in it, and those slits will allow the dirt and grime to go inside the slots and not destroy the threads. So we'll continue to soak it with some penetrating oil and help to get rid of some of that rust. We'll just take this bolt, run it through, and essentially we want to get it to a point to where we can run the bolt in and out easily by hand. Now this is what you want it to look like after you've cleaned it out. We'll just run it through one last time all the way down and back it back out. We'll repeat that same process for the remaining 4 holes, or the remaining 3 holes on our frame rail. Now it may help to use a power tool in order to do this. I just want to preface it that you want to get a few threads started before you can confidently use a power tool. You can use a hand wrench or a socket and a ratchet in order to do it, but you can see how dirty those threads are by the time we run this bolt in and out. Now with our threads all cleaned out, we'll take our bracket, slide it in between the 2 brackets we have on our frame. Then we'll take a lock washer and a flat washer, put it on our larger bolts, and thread them into place. You want to have these hand tied also. Just loosely thread those on until we can get all of our hardware in place, then we can go back and tighten everything else. Now we'll take 2 bolts, 2 of our longer bolts, they'll have this little collar on them. And we'll put on a lock washer, flat washer. One of them is going to thread directly into the rear support rod. And the other one will get installed on the front with a nut on the other side. Actually, we're going to put the bolts in first and then slide the flat washer on, followed by the lock washer and then the nut. Now, once we've got both brackets on the side of our frame rail, we can come back and tighten the frame rail brackets and then the rest of our hardware. Now for this bolt that is right here, it's right by your latch mechanism. You're not going to be able to get a power tool back there, so you're going to have to use a ratcheting wrench or just a regular wrench and take your time and get it tightened down. Now we're going to come back with a torque wrench and torque all of our hardware to the specifications and the instructions. Now that we've got all our hardware torqued down to the specifications, we can take our latch handle, and there's going to be a small hole in the frame of our hitch. Slide that handle through, and then lift it up, feed it through the hole. May have to turn it sideways so it goes out of the frame. There we go. And then on our hitch, you'll see the latch on the side. We'll take the carriage bolt that comes in our kit. It's a very small carriage bolt. Slide it through, and then put a flange nut on the other side. We'll come back with a wrench and tighten that down. Near the center of our hitch, you'll see two holes on either side. Those are our safety chain loopholes. We're going to have to drill out a pilot hole to be able to run our safety chain loops down through. We're going to drill a pilot hole through the center of it and then go up top and expand the hole. Now we're back up inside our bed. I like to take a step bit and drill out these holes until the safety chain loops fit. If you make them so that they just barely fit, it's going to be really difficult to use them in the future as the metal starts to rust. If you get any rust on your safety chain loops, it's going to be really hard to pull them up and down. So I usually like to go just a tad further, so you can see, as on this one, they're a little bit looser than originally designed, but I like that better so that they're a lot easier to operate. Go. That'll be perfect. So we'll take our vacuum, clean up the shavings, and then put some more of that clear coat on them. And we'll take the springs that come in our kit. You want to put the larger opening up. We will put our spring on and then thread the nut on. When we tighten these, you want to tighten them until the bottom of our threads is flush with the bottom of the nut. Now on our driver's side, our release handle is right here, so we're going to have to trim a little bit of this so that the owner of the vehicle can get the gooseneck unlocked. We've got our wheel well liner up in place, and we just need to kind of mark a loose spot. We'll take a razor blade and just cut right through this material. You can do this one of two ways. You can either cut it more than wide enough so you have more than enough space. I like to cut fewer or a little bit out at a time to see how easy it is to use it, and then go from there. We've got a little bit cut out there, and that is more than enough. So get it latched back into place. I just don't like to cut any more out than I have to because I think it makes it look bad. go. So we got it roughly trimmed out. We'll come back in with and clean this up a little bit so that it looks nice. Well guys, hopefully this video was able to help you decide whether or not the B&W turnover ball gooseneck hitch is right for you and your 2019 Chevy Silverado 2500.